blues world, you either have the more traditional blues harmonica players, which are influenced by Little Walter Jacobs, Big Walter Horton, and so on, in the traditional electrical Chicago sound from the 50s. And on the other side, you have more contemporary players, for a lack of a better word, which tend to use overblows techniques, electronical effects, and so on. And these kind of aesthetical choices and aesthetical schools, so to speak, tend to make us think in boxes that I would like us to think around, because my view on the whole thing is that I started out playing pre-war blues, which is like acoustic blues from the 1920s and 1930s, which has been a main interest for me for many years. And I see a lot of stuff in that early music from the pre-Second World War that kind of communicates with the more contemporary stuff. Because you find some kind of techniques back then that kind of blend very well with the more modern techniques today. So I think this kind of schisma it's kind of it kind of tampers our harmonica imagination. But to start out, I started out as a traditional blues harmonica player, which I basically still am. And I started out playing a lot of electrical Chicago blues and pre-war blues and so on. And in these styles, there are, I think, three main assets or three main aspects, which are qualities that I look for in other harmonica players' way of playing. And I think they are qualities that, this is my subjective view, most harmonica players should have in another way, in one way in their playing. So I think you can learn a lot to listen to the old masters or old, should I say it, legends, without trying to exactly copy them, but you can learn something from the quality of their playing. And what is this quality? And I think it's three dimensions of the traditional blues harmonica playing that I like. And one thing is the use of tone, good tone. And what good tone is a big discussion, of course, because one man's meat is another man's poison, so to speak. But I'm talking about this relaxed, huge tone with a very nice embouchure, which a lot of people think you only can have if you play with tongue block, but you can also have a very good tone if you play with pucker, and most people mix that stuff up. So tone is number one, and then number two is timing, the use of time, the way the traditional harmonic players always do this subtle stuff with their timing, with their way of phrasing, putting their phrases around the beat. If you listen to a player like Little Walter, which everyone listens to, you have to listen to Walter, but he has all this subtle stuff he does with his timing that is very hard to grasp and it's very hard to copy too. But I think you can learn a lot of being very nuanced in your playing when it comes to rhythm. And I think a lot of contemporary players, not a lot of, but not everyone are so interested in those subtle rhythm stuff anymore, because it's a tendency to rather emphasize harmony or melody or complexity in that direction. And the third thing that I'm looking for is texture. And with texture, I mean the use of chords, the use of the use of the harmonica as a chordal instrument, the way of fattening up, the stuff you play, instead of playing it with a, thin, very pinched voice, unless you prefer that, because that's no problem. But for me, those three qualities, tonality, timing, and texture, they're very important. I think it's an aspect that you should try to imply to all kinds of harmonica play. And I can play just an example of traditional blues harmonica. If you, for example, think about a harmonica player like Big Walter Horton, which I know a lot of you guys really like. He had it all when it comes to big tone, nice sense of rhythm, and very good use of textures. And the way he could play a simple melody, he could kind of build out the whole theme in a very nuanced, subtle way for 3 minutes without it sounding like boring in any aspect, or without of just noodling around, or just sticking to the melody or to an improvisation that are idiomatically very close to the main theme. So like if you listen to Walter when he plays like let's say Easy, which I think was his first some hit single, so to speak, he plays something like this is a Marine Band in G, by the way, Deluxe. He plays like and in that kind of traditional blues harmonica style, you have all those aspects I really like about harmonica playing, which I think is important to learn something from and use in different other contexts too. And on this other end, a lot of the harp players that are the main reference for blues harmonica playing today, they played in the so-called golden age through electrical amplifiers with a bullet microphone, which is for many people still the epitome of the blues harmonica sound, so to speak. And if you play to a bassman or to some kind of tube amplifier with a bullet microphone, you get this fat sound that tends to emphasize some harmonic textures or way of phrasings that sounds good through that kind of setup. And this is like the chicken and egg, the electrical bullet microphone and what should I call it, bassman setup kind of invites you to play in a certain way. And some phrases sounds really good play that way, and other aspects doesn't sound that good that way. If you have like a G or an A harmonica or a low tuned harmonica, they sound really fat and really nice in amplifier. But if you play like a high pitched harmonica like an E or an F, they don't tend to sound that good, because then you always you get this trebly high mid-tone sound. So I think if you listen to a lot of the pre-war players that didn't use amplifiers and didn't use bullet microphones in that way, they play in many of them in a different style, different positions, and using the 3 octaves of the harmonica in a very active way all the time, that have more in common with these kind of contemporary harmonica techniques that you can listen to today. So I think, for example, you listen to a player like DeFord Bailey, which was, well, if DeFord is a blues harmonica player or old-timey player, it's a long discussion or whatever, but he was a classical harmonica player that released a lot of recordings before the war, and a lot of famous blues harmonica players listened a lot to DeFord. Like Sonny Terry had DeFord as one of his heroes, even though Sonny Terry didn't sound like DeFord in any way. And you can hear stuff from DeFord in like Big Walter Horton's playing through, especially when he plays the first position stuff. And I'm going to just play a little bit from I think it's called Ice Water Blues, which is one of DeFord Bailey's little ditties, and where you can hear that DeFord is using. Well, I'm trying to emulate what D4 is doing, and I'm not doing it as good as D4 anyway. But he's emphasizing polyrhythmics, the way of playing with a split tongue, playing the bass lines on the left part of your mouth and playing the melody on the right side of your mouth at the same time, and a lot of other advanced techniques that you don't hear in the more traditional later on electric Chicago sound. So I'll just play a little bit of Ice Water Blues, and I'll try to. And this is in first position, still on a G marine band. Is the sound okay, Sam? Can you hear me okay? Oops, you're muted, Sam.
Sorry, yeah. Yes, it's okay. I think when you started playing before, it sort of broke up a little bit.
Yeah.
There is a slight adjustment you can make to your settings. If I just quickly whiz through those. So if you go down to your, where it says mute, it should be at the bottom of the screen. Click on the little arrow.
Yeah.
Then if you go to audio settings.
Yeah, there you go. I got it here, yes.
About halfway down the right, you can see automatically adjust microphone volume. It's sort of below those sliders.
Yeah, I can see it there. I think it's already
so that needs to be unticked, so you need to take that off. And then quickly, if you go to advanced, which is bottom right, there's like a button with advanced on.
Yes, I see it there. Yeah, there you go.
And then you've got a screen there that says suppress persistent noise, suppress.
Yeah.
They should be both disabled, so they should be both
disabled. Background noise disabled, and echo cancellation, is that disabled too, or is it on?
That's just left on auto.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
Okay. Hopefully that should make it okay. All right. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Okay. Back to the Ice Water Blues. And so on. And in that piece, there's a lot of stuff going on all the time. So, talking about complexity, that stuff is really complex. And I think it's very important to think about that this pre-war stuff has this kind of harmonica techniques that in a way resembles contemporary techniques and are just as complex, if not even more complex, in a way that they're played. So I think that is an important lesson, and I think it's important to buy the Yazoo collections. One of them is called, I don't know, Blues Harmonica or something. It's a lot of good stuff from 20s and 30s. Another one is the same kind of title, is two of them. And I have all kind of old-timey harmonica players, jazz harmonica players, ragtime, and blues. And it all kind of, blends into each other. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And it kind of opens up your imagination and your creativity when you listen to that stuff. But you also have to listen to, Sonny Boy Williams and Big Walter and all that stuff too. But I think it's an important lesson to learn and a way to, try to think in a creative way. So one of my challenges as a harp player has been being a studio player, for example, I usually play in different contexts. You know, most studio sessions, you're not playing with Fred Bigelow and the Aces. In most studio sessions, you are playing with, you know, it could be a black metal band or symphonic orchestra or whatever. And in those settings, I also try, you know, to take with me some of those qualities from the traditional harmonica techniques or blues harmonica techniques, which is timing, tonality, and texture. I think a good thing is to try to keep those qualities in your playing while still doing things that are not traditional. You know, you could be playing a melody, which you need alternate tuning to play. It could be using overblows, which is I think most of you guys have heard about overblows, and overblows are kind of like, you know, there's been a lot of focus on overblows by all means for the last 30 years, so they're not that new anymore anyway. But overblows is also a technique that for many players demands another kind of embouchure than the one you use when you play the traditional blues harmonica techniques. You know, incorporating overblows in the traditional texture is kind of a challenge for many players because you have to switch between the puckered position to the overblow and back to the tongue block position for doing octaves and stuff like that. So overblows and alternate tunings, and you also have what I call split tonguing. It will, with that I mean, instead of playing just like using your tongue for either playing warbles or for playing an octave, which you do in a lot of traditional blues harmonica playing, you use your tongue also to play different kind of chords and to play two notes at the same time, where you block one hole in between instead of blocking two, so you get an octave. And you can do this in creative ways, and you can combine it with contrapunctual playing. You know, it's like when you heard Howard Levy, playing like. Or something like that. You're using the same technique as you do when you play. It's the same thing as you do at the octave in the ender, but you're using your tongue in a different way in between for blocking different notes with different intervals. So when it comes to split tonguing, which I'm talking about now, another technique that a very good contemporary player like Steve Baker, I guess a lot of you have heard about him. He is a consultant for the Honor Company, and you should check out all his records. They are all good. He's very good at playing in a more contemporary funk, rock, post-folk, whatever context, using traditional blues tonal qualities and combining them in a smooth, easily going way into his playing in an integrated way. Because what I don't like is pet licks. It's when people have learned something, you know, they have learned overblows for the first time. So every time they play, you know, shuffle or whatever, they have to play, you know, just to I can do overblow. But the good thing is to try to incorporate those techniques in your playing in an easy manner, so the listeners, being harmonica players or regular folks, they don't think about that being overblow or split tongue technique or whatever. They're just thinking about it as music. So I just want to play an example as, let's say you're playing on a swing groove, which a lot of blues harmonica players prefer. And you're trying to play idiomatically in the, you know, in the context of traditional blues harp playing, but you're trying to use some split tonguing, and you're trying to use, you know, some overblows and so on, but in an integrated manner. I'll just you know, play like 24 bars for you or something like that. It goes like. or something like that. And in that that improvisation, I put in some of these contemporary techniques, but I kind of try to blend them in so they sound idiomatically, I should say, correct or in the group. You don't think about it as, I hope, as, oh, he's playing overblow or he's doing split tonguing or whatever. But the thing is to make a fluent language on the harp while you're playing. And some of the tricks that I will show you, lucky people, since you're here, is some of the stuff I used there. The one is the split tonguing thing, which is you play hole 2 in and hole 4 in on the harp, and you block hole 3 with your tongue. So you get a, instead of blocking hole 2 and 3 and playing an octave on 1 and 4, like you do. And you can also use the same kind of split tongue thing when you're playing on the 4 chord. If you're playing hole 1 and hole 3 while blocking hole 2, it's like. And the nice thing is that if you listen to some of the Cajun harmonica players, which might sound quite obscure for some of you people, but which some of that stuff is really nice, and they have this split tongue thing where they're playing the 5 chord while split tonguing on, I think it's hole 6 and 8 together. So instead of playing the 5 chord in a regular way, they play this high split tongue thing, which kind of gives you a Zydeco sound. I like to put that in sometimes to, make variation in my playing and to spice things up. I can show you. This is like a kind of Zydeco, quasi Zydeco piece. It's like. And then I play that instead of playing on the 1/4. So it's a little trick. It's very convenient, and you can use it in your playing all the time. When it comes to overblows, I like to use overblows as transitional notes. It means that if you're playing like, say you're playing like a ballad, like Over the Rainbow, so to speak, and I'm playing it with some kind of big band or something. I'm playing like, oh, it's not set for all. Sorry. Let's see. There you go. You're playing. Then I don't like to use overblow there because it kind of it gets too emphasized, and you can listen to the intonation. It's kind of off, and I guess a lot of harp players could play better than me, so it's not that. But I prefer to use like the melody maker tuning, where the flatted 7th is raised. I'm getting something on the audio settings there. Have you should now select original sound, I think, on the top left of the screen. Yeah, let's see here. Where is that? Original sound. No, I can see that. No. You guys hear me? You don't hear me? Is Sam around here still? Or he just
yes, sorry, yeah.
Is the sound better, Sam? Or is it Sam?
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm just, there's some more messages coming through. So Trevor says, no, the original sound just switches off all those settings.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, right, so leave things as they are, I think, Trevor.
I have a device on my laptop here. I just tried to disconnect that and use the original microphone on the laptop, and you can try better, okay?
Yeah, I think it's a local microphone sound. The only other thing I would suggest, it's obviously you've got the background behind you. Sometimes that can use up a lot of your processing, so it stops your sound coming through as well.
Yeah. Does that sound better? You hear me better now?
If you could just speak for a bit longer.
Yeah, okay, because now I changed over to the built-in microphone on the laptop. So it should be better.
It
Yeah,
sounds a bit
okay.
more even to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the lesson. Um, so playing a ballad like that and using an overblow as some kind of note, I don't always like that. I like to use them as grace notes or passing notes instead. So what I was trying to do is like if you play over the rainbow and you use the overblow, like this is overblow on the whole 5. I prefer to use alternate tuning like the melody maker and play because it sounds a lot better and in tune too. But I would rather use the overblows as grace notes or passing notes when, for example, playing up-tempo stuff. I like to use the overblow on. I like to use the overblow on hole 5, especially when playing turnarounds. It's like Russ is saying here, contributing harps have a major second note. Yeah, exactly. That's the one you don't need to use the overblow for that one. Using a sidal harmonica here. This is 1847, the one with the steel body. And playing, for example, a swing song, and you're playing the turnaround. You come to the 5 chord, then I can play something like that's that's the overblow on the whole 5, which gives you the way of playing like a horn player would do, this chromatic way of playing a turnaround, and I think it's nice in that kind of context. Or if you're playing a kind of boogie woogie pattern and you're coming to the 4 chord, then I like to use the overblow on the whole 1 because it's very convenient. You can play something like, and then comes the 4 chord. That's overblow. Ba, 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 ba. And it sounds good in that context, you know. And most people don't think about it like being an overblow. And another thing is using overblows as a transition from the middle part of the harp up to the higher register of the harp, you know, the top octave. Because as most harp players that play diatonic blues harp knows, is when you come to the top octave, the patterns are different from the ones on the 2 bottom octaves, so it's kind of difficult and you have to turn things around. And that's why a lot of top harp or high harp playing on the top part of the harp, a lot of players prefer to do that on the first position stuff. It's like, you know, you listen to Jimmy Reed or someone playing in the Jimmy Reed style, they play first position. This is an A harp, they play and so on. But playing in second position, it's more tricky because the note layout is different in the top octave. But there you can have some good transitional patterns to use. And if you're using overblows, it could be a good thing too. Like playing a swing thing and going from the middle octave to the top octave, you can play something like. There I play. You go up on hole 6 in the overblow. That's hole 9 and hole 8 as blow bends, you know. And then you have these transitional patterns that are really nice to use when you go to the top harp, the top part of the harp. Because a lot of harp players have this, you know, pet licks they use when they're going to play the top octave of their harmonica because it's difficult to do it. But I think it's very important to try to practice to have different kind of transitional licks to use when you're going to the top harp part of the harp, so you don't have to use the same kind of you know, transitional phrasings all the time. You could play something like or you could play or you could play or something like that. And it's all different patterns that you can use. And I think Using overblows in that context can be a really nice addition, and it can give you new possibilities to go from the middle octave to the top octave of the harmonic. Speaking of positions, a lot of harmonica players, they usually have a second position as their home base, so to speak. It's their position that you usually go to, and it's the position where you have these nice fat chords and nice fat octaves and so on, and that you can, always use when you sit with a band or do something else. You get the, you can easily go into some kind of groove, and you can play a lot of the traditional Chicago stuff in second position.